Wander Wealthy Podcast, episode 111. Hello, my loves. Welcome back to another episode of the Wander Wealthy Podcast. My name is Tess. I'm the host of this show, and Wander Wealthy is a podcast. It's also a coaching practice and an online platform to help service-based online entrepreneurs understand their finances, making money and managing money a little bit easier. Making money easier? Is that something I could say? Who knows? Anyway, today's show is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to talk about why you need to put your personal finances first before even setting your business money goals. If you didn't listen to last week's episode, I would highly encourage you to go and listen to that. You don't have to as a prerequisite for this episode, but I do think it'll help. Actually, you should just listen to the episodes together. You can listen to either one first, but these two episodes are really going hand in hand. Now, last week we talked about setting big, massive revenue goals and why that is important. I shared my gripe with having those 5-figure months or 6-figure income years as goals because they just really feel like vanity numbers. And, if we want to call them vanity metrics, it's very much in the same vein as getting 100 likes on your Instagram post. There's not a lot of basis behind that. And we all know, I'm sure, if you've been in the business owner world, of the online entrepreneur world especially, you know that you don't need a huge number of followers or a huge number of likes or whatever those vanity metrics really are in order to make a considerable amount of money. In that same regard, you don't need 5-figure months in order to feel like you've made it as an entrepreneur. Now, if the 5-figure months are rooted in strong, durable numbers, they have purpose behind them because you've identified what you need as an employee of your business, as well as a business owner, but also what your business needs in order to run, then that makes total sense. But for a lot of people, I see it all the time, especially in the first few years, having these 6-figure years or multi-6 figures, even 7-figure businesses. That's great, but what does that mean? And how do you get to those numbers? And a lot of us don't actually go through the process and the effort to get to those numbers. So we talked a little bit about that in last week's episode on why we need to have a regular revenue goal setting practice, and also how we can identify more purpose-driven revenue goals. But today I wanted to dive in a little bit deeper and really say, okay, if you're going to go ahead and go forth and set these purpose-driven revenue goals, I challenge you to figure out what your personal income and personal finance goals, even in the long term, are first before really trying to figure out, okay, how much do I need to make this year in my business? There's a lot of reasons why this is important, and that's what I want to get into today, because so often, and I totally understand where we're coming from when we do this as business owners, we neglect our personal needs because our business becomes our baby and we want to take care of it. I get it. But so often then we neglect the fact that, when you go from a full-time, traditionally employed 9-to-5 job to running your own business, you miss out on all of these things that are by default taken care of. You know what I'm talking about. Health insurance is probably one big pain point for a lot of us, but there's also certain life insurances that you might want to have, or disability insurance. And then, of course, retirement planning. And these are some things that when you're sitting down to figure out, okay, how much would I like to make for my business? You don't even consider because you're like, well, I'm not there yet, so I shouldn't even have that as a number quite yet. Like when I get to those 6-figure years or the 6-figure months or whatever that vanity number is, a lot of people are like, when I get there, then I'll reassess and I'll try to decide how much I'm going to set aside for retirement or how I'm going to, finally afford the down payment on a home that I'm looking to buy. The way that I approach it is very different. And if you download my Easy Profit Roadmap, which you can get for free by going to wanderwealthy.com/roadmap, I walk you through the exact steps that I take my one-on-one clients through. And these are more so phases, I would say. And the very first phase, the very first step is defining their personal income needs. And for a lot of my clients, that might be, okay, we're going to spend, our first month or even 2 months working together, really understanding what you need as an individual to make sure that you're taking care of yourself as your key employee, but you're also looking towards the future and planning for that and figuring out, okay, how does my business play a role in this? But how do I also make sure that my business is giving me a fair wage so I can plan for my future if my business is no longer in that future plan? So I wanted to bring this up, and I really wanted to make sure that this was its own separate podcast, because when I was doing last week's podcast episode, I was reviewing one of my business book Bibles, and that one, it's actually not a business book per se, but it is a money book, and it is called Tapping into Wealth by Margaret Lynch. And she uses EFT, which is emotional freedom technique. It's tapping to, release emotions and feelings around certain thoughts. And in a lot of ways, she uses EFT tapping to help people with their money blocks. This book is wonderful. I highly recommend it. I will link it in the description or the show notes of this episode. You can get that at wanderwealthypodcast.com/podcast/episode 111. I feel like that's a magical aligned number too. So let's celebrate that for a second. But this book is such gold. There's so many great exercises that I often like to use in my coaching with my clients, because I think that it really helps you identify where you're coming from in terms of your money blocks and your beliefs and the stories that you've been holding on to for so long. But in this book, she has a chapter entirely dedicated to setting outrageous goals. And I really wanted to reference that chapter for the last podcast about the fact that we tend to set our goals and totally ignore them. But there's a piece of this chapter that talks about, it's titled Nurturing Your Inner Entrepreneur. And she talks about, if you are self-employed, how it is imperative to set your personal income goal first. So I wanted to read an excerpt because I think that really rings true. And it's like she took the words out of my mouth and she says it way better than I do. So I want to give credit where credit is due. So she says, decide how much money your business has to pour into your life for you to be happy and have financial freedom. Use this number to set your business goals, not the other way around. Many people set personal income goals based on beliefs about what their business has achieved so far and how much more they think it can take in. This thinking will limit both you and your business. So let's unpack that a little bit. She's saying we need to identify what we need and what we deserve to have in terms of the money getting poured into our life that is going to make us happy and fulfilled financially before we determine what our business and what money we need to pour into our business is going to be. So before we determine those revenue goals. And the reason is because when we think about how much, if you think about what you're doing right now, look at if you've even set a revenue goal this year or before, maybe in a previous year, think about that revenue goal, or just think about the revenue that your business is bringing in. And think about how much you are paying yourself from that revenue. Maybe it's plenty and maybe you're there, and kudos to you if it is the case. But for most people, it's not nearly enough to especially help them get to those big time, long-term financial freedom goals on a personal level. Or they're not even paying themselves at all, because we let our business and our business needs dictate how much we're going to actually end up paying ourselves as the business owner. And that is just ass backwards, my friend. So by putting those limitations on our personal income, by just saying, well, we just have to see what my business is going to make, and then that'll determine how much I make. Instead, you say, no. I'm going to figure out how much I need, and then I'm going to set a goal for what my business needs to make, and then we're going to work our ass off in whatever way, shape, or form, whether you're going to figure out how it's going to flow to you or you like the hustle mentality. I don't really care which way you approach it, but I want you to be in alignment with a number that is appropriate for your business to bring in so that it can feed you and pay you the amount that you deserve as an individual. So when she says in this excerpt that I read, many people set personal income goals based on beliefs about what their business has achieved so far and how much they think it can take in. okay, that's you maybe looking back at what has your business been able to make so far this year. Let's say you're sitting here in June and you look back and you're like, well, I've only really made $20,000 in sales and I need at least half of that, or maybe I need a quarter of that to cover my business expenses. And I need another, 15 to 20% to set aside for taxes. So that only means that if I do give myself money, I can take about half, but I don't feel totally comfortable. And is $10,000 really even enough for me for the last 6 months? Is that something that I'm happy with or not? But that's what we're doing, is we're letting the past, looking at what we've made, determine how much we get to make as an individual. And using that, first, we're allowing our stories that we've been telling and our beliefs about our income to dictate how much we're able to make in the future. But on top of that, then what we're doing is we're looking at the past and looking at how much we were able to pay ourselves, if we were able to pay ourselves at all. And then we're saying, okay, well, if I want to make a little bit more money personally, then that means I'm going to have to take on all of this, new clients or more time or hustle my way or this is kind of reiterating what we talked about last week, is letting our brain, our conscious mind, go to work for us and try to figure it out until it exhausts itself. And then it just says, forget about it. Just keep doing what you're doing. It's not exactly where you want to be, but the idea of trying to figure out how we're going to get you more money is exhausting us. And it's exhausting because we're not breaking this pattern. We're not interrupting this pattern in any way. We're just trying to use this pattern and maybe change it. And change is very hard. Whereas if we can just entirely say, okay, this isn't how I'm going to do goals anymore. This isn't going to be how I figure out how to make money anymore. Instead, I'm going to take an entirely new process and system. I'm going to use my personal income needs at the forefront, and I'm going to figure out what do I need to make in order for this business to be worth it. And that's kind of a hard pill to swallow, and I don't want anyone to ever give up on their business because it doesn't seem worth it at the beginning, because it is going to be a little bit of a shock to the system when you see what your revenue goals ultimately are, if you're able to make the business quote unquote worth it due to your personal goals. However, it's so important to know what those personal goals are because most people don't know. And the importance comes in the fact that you are still the human running and operating your business, and you deserve to make the money that you've always wanted to make. And if you don't, and you think, well, I should just continue to kind of be a slave to my business and work for peanuts because my business needs all this money, then that's a mindset issue that we need to tackle later on. So if we can just set that aside, even if you have that thought, you can just set that aside and you can start going, okay, if I was going to take myself to an employer, let's say they're going to hire me to do everything I do in my business, but I know they have the money to pay me, what price point would I put on that? And you can really sit down and go, okay, well, let's look at all of my personal income needs. What do I need in order to pay the bills? Do I want to be able to pay my bills 100%? Or do I have alternative income sources, or maybe a spouse who pays for part of the bills, or some other way to help those bills get covered so that my business isn't required to pay the paycheck that is required to pay the bills 100%. Now, you might be at different levels here too, and that's something that we do in my guilt-free spending system workshop, because this is a big guilt buster, is figuring out how much you deserve to make out of your business. But what we do in that workshop is we set different levels of income goals from the personal side. So you might have okay, this is my reality goal right now. This is what I need. This is what will make me feel like, okay, I'm making it happen. I'm making things happen and things are working out for me. And that might be, at this point, I can rely on my husband to cover some of these bills. So I just want my business to bring in enough to cover 1/3 of the rent or something. Or maybe you have a full-time job too. And so this is really a side hustle, but you're trying to get your side hustle to your full-time hustle, and you're trying to figure out what that's going to take. So whatever angle you're coming in at, just figure out, what do I want my business to be able to cover for me? Beyond that, you can start dreaming into those next tiers. So you might have a different tier of goals, and that it's what do I need to make just make it happen, to just cover some bases and say, okay, my business is a business now. It's paying me and it's covering some things, versus this is my dream business. I want to retire my husband, or I want to be able to contribute, 60%, or I want to go full time in my business. So what does that mean I need to make? As well as those additional things. Like I want to be able to set, let's say $500 a month into an IRA or a Roth IRA for my retirement plan. Or I want to be able to cover my own health insurance fully. That's definitely something you'll have to think about if you're going from a career that provides you with health insurance, a 9 to 5, to your own. But in addition to that, you'll have other dreams and savings goals that you probably have that maybe right now in your business you're not considering, and we can start speckling those in to your tier 1 goal, which is just, this means I have a business because I'm paying myself, and so I'm able to cover some costs and then some savings stuff, to the tier 2, to the tier 3, which is that ultimate dream. So what is it going to take in terms of income for you to retire your husband? What is he comfortable with and you comfortable with combined? Then you can make sure you're covering all the costs in your household, as well as saving for retirement for the two of you, plus all the goals that come in between today's day-to-day costs and, retirement 30 or 20 years from now. So these are the things I want you to ask yourself, because so many people don't. Especially entrepreneurs. We don't sit down and go, what's it going to take for my business to pay me a salary that if I were to take all these skills and someone wanted to just pay me for them and they had millions of dollars so they could pay me however much I was going to slap the price tag on for? What is that? Have you figured that out? And the reason it's so important to do that is, again, because when I sit down with my clients and we boil it back, or we pull the curtains back and we say, why did you get into this business? Why did you decide to build this business for yourself? And let's talk about the putting yourself first reasons. We discussed this in a previous episode as well, but, getting down to the root of it and saying, of course you want to make an impact. You want to change people's lives. You want to make transformation in the world, and that's amazing. But what's in this for you too? Because there has to be something in this for you. And for a lot of people, they're sick of the income caps that get put on them when they are working in a traditionally employed environment. Or they're sick of the constraints that are put on them because they want to be able to take vacation whenever they want. Or maybe they want to be able to work, 3 days a week, or take December and August, the entire months, off during the year. And you can't, some companies are becoming very awesome and understanding and great at this, but it's really, really difficult to do this without building your own business. And those are a lot of driving factors of the clients that I work with one-on-one. And that's the type of business they want to build, is something that feels like, they can make an impact, they can show up, they can be themselves and transform the lives of their clients or customers, but they can also do it on their own time in a way that feels authentic to them, and get paid an infinitely abundant dollar amount that helps them feel like they're truly reaping the rewards for this risk that they take and the willingness to get uncomfortable and put themselves out there. And when we think about it that way, you deserve to make an infinite amount of money. But if you were going to put a dollar amount on it, what is it going to take? And let's do that on the personal level first, so that we don't think about our business and what our business can muster at its current state. And that's really what I think Margaret is talking about in her book when she's discussing the importance of entrepreneurs setting their personal income goals first, is because if you try to set your personal income goal after setting your business revenue goal, or even thinking about your business and what it's capable of doing at its current state, it's going to sabotage your goal setting process of defining what's it really going to take for you? What's going to be that I made it moment for you? And you can have a couple different tiers, and that's fine. I encourage that, actually, so that we can start going, okay, what's realistic for the next 90 days versus the next 3 years? But it's so important to do this work, and no one is doing it. So that's why you need to do that so that you don't limit yourself based on what your business has done in the past or what you think it's capable of, is first just starting with, what do you want? As an individual, regardless of your business, like if you had your dream job and you could get paid for however much you wanted to work and however much effort you wanted to put out there, and in whatever way you showed up, still, what do you want to make on an annual basis? And then we'll back into it from there. Now, a little word of warning, because you're going to go and you're going to set this personal income goal. And you can do a couple different tiers of it, which I encourage, but you're going to set it. And then maybe you'll go to the Easy Profit Roadmap. Remember, you can download it for free if you don't have it. And in that roadmap, I have Easy Profit Math, where I show you how to incorporate your personal income goal and as well as your business investment goal. I call them business investments because most of the things we spend money on in our business are investments or should be investments. They should be helping us get some sort of revenue. It's not like we're just spending money to like eat chocolate, which we do in our personal life, and that's totally cool. Include it as a goal. How much chocolate do you want to eat? In our business, most of our expenses are actually investments. So I like to think of them that way. But what are your investment goals for your business as well? And you can have different tiers for that as well. But you're going to include this in your Easy Profit Math on the Easy Profit Roadmap page. And then you're going to include your percentages that you need for taxes and profit. And then you're going to figure out what that revenue goal is. And I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to freak out a little bit, because it is scary. That number is probably going to be huge, especially if you do your dreamy number, that big one. And there's a lot of work that we can do to get around this, but I just want you to know that this is supposed to happen. And you're not alone if you're looking at that number and you're going, oh, poopy, this is scary. Or I don't know how the heck I'm going to get there. And this is exactly what I'm talking about, though, from last week's episode about setting these big, massive goals. The reason we set these goals is not because we're supposed to figure them out right now. We need to get away and break away from going into the how. This is something that my coach, Shauna Van Bogart, talks about a lot, and I'm constantly catching myself, especially because I'm a very analytical, practical person. I want to show up and solve everything. I want to how your face off. You know, I'm like, let's figure it out how we're going to do it. And I have to stop doing that, because just like where you're going to go, where your brain's going to take you, my brain takes me, and it wants to go, well, how are we going to make this happen? What does this mean in terms of time? And what does this mean in terms of clients? And what does this mean in terms of pricing? And for a brief moment, and if you can stretch that to be a daily practice and then having it be monthly, eventually your how brain is going to give up on trying. And that number, if you do the work and you put it front and center and then you regularly check in on it and measure it and just see what's going on and where you want to be, your subconscious mind is going to go into, okay, this is a number that I see. This is not a big deal. This is something we can figure out. And eventually you'll get those ideas, those innovations, those creative sparks, those thought downloads, whatever you want to call it, where you're going to figure out, oh, this is how I get that number. And you might not get close, but that's why it's a big, outrageous revenue goal too, because you're going to step forward in any way, shape, or form. You're going to make some sort of progress. And if not, if you're not making progress, then we got to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, what's going on here? Where are we sabotaging ourselves? And that might be on just like a plain and simple mindset level. But if you can make progress from where you are now to get unstuck, that's the important part. And then if you can get to a point where you're paying yourself something that feels good and you're hitting that tier 1 level of personal income that you've always wanted, that's that next step. And I know that it can be hard, and I know that it sometimes doesn't feel right to demand this type of money for yourself, but that's the work that we need to work through together and get over. And that's where it's going to take time and it's going to take compassion, but it's also going to take knowing what are the numbers? How does this boil down so that I can make sure I'm affording this dream life, so I can make sure that I'm building the business of my dreams that can also pay me for the life of my dreams. Because a lot of people will build a business and think this feels really good, and then they'll realize that the business isn't actually paying them a salary, or it's not paying them what they should be making. And so their business seems great and their business looks awesome, but their life looks stressful, and they can't understand what's been happening the past few years while building this amazing business, why their personal finances are still in disarray. This is why Wander Wealthy is pivoting into this direction to provide self-employed entrepreneurs the avenue to learn about financial literacy on both the business side of things and the personal side of things, because I want folks, and the population of self-employed people is becoming more and more. We're getting to be a much more virtual, independent contract society, as well as the doors of online coaching and other service-based business providers. Those doors are opening to more opportunities, and for people to see that this is a way that I can design a life that feels good to me and make an impact on the world using my skills. And so with that, we need people like me to help you make sure that you're making the smart decisions financially that'll allow you to live out these dreams and have a good life. And a good life can mean anything to you. And in some cases, we need to do some deep mindset work to make sure you understand that you deserve a good life, because some people don't believe they do. And let me be the first or the 100th person to tell you that you do deserve a good life. And if you are brave enough to go out on a limb and make this commitment to yourself to build a business and to make an impact and transform the lives of others, then without a doubt, 110%, yes, you do deserve this. So it starts with understanding on a personal level, what do you want? And the reason we do that is because we don't want to set limits on that. So don't even think about what your business can afford at this time. I want you to go through goal setting, understanding what do you want and need. And if that is a struggle for you, or you just want someone to walk you step by step through it, then I invite you to join my guilt-free spending system workshop. This is a week-long workshop that I plan to be holding once every few months. But the first one for business owners, for online entrepreneurs, is being held the last week of June. We actually are going to kick off June 24th. So you can actually sign up to get on the wait list by going to wanderwealthy.com/GFSS, short for guilt-free spending system. I will also link it in the description box, so don't worry about remembering the URL. But you can sign up for the wait list, and then I'm going to let you know, you'll be the first to know if you're on the wait list when the guilt-free spending system workshop doors are open and you can get inside. I'm not planning on taking more than 20 people, so I really want to make sure that if you're serious about this, if you're ready to make a change in your income and really get an understanding on what you deserve personally, I'm going to help step you through understanding what your personal income needs are, and also busting through some of the money blocks that come up when you start thinking about paying yourself, or even spending money on yourself as an entrepreneur. There's so many people who have guilt around spending money and paying themselves out of their business, or even spending money within their business because, well, there's a lot of different reasons. And for that, I'm going to be hosting a free webinar pretty soon in the Facebook group. So I know I'm telling you guys a lot of places to go. I don't want to overwhelm you, but we do have a Facebook group called The Wealthy Entrepreneur. You can just search it on Facebook. Again, I'll link it up. But I'll be hosting a free webinar as a precursor to the guilt-free spending system workshop, because the workshop is a paid workshop. So I just want to give you a little taste of what you're going to get by getting into this free webinar within the Facebook group. So you can join that. You can sign up for the Easy Profit Roadmap. You can get in the guilt-free spending system waitlist. All of these will be connected, and I will be letting you know what's going on throughout the next couple weeks before the workshop kicks off June 24th. But those are the most important things you need to know. And if you're ready for transformation in terms of your relationship with money and what you think you deserve, and if you feel guilt around spending money, your own or your businesses, or pulling money out of your business, or even setting big revenue goals to figure out what you need in your business needs in order to build this dream empire that hopefully you're working towards, then you want to get the roadmap, you want to be in the workshop, and you might even want to join the free webinar. So just go to wonderwealthypodcast.com/podcast/episode 111 if you want access to all of the links, or you can get them in the description of this show. And I will keep you posted if you get on any of those email lists or within the group with what's going on, because I know this was like a deluge of information. Okay, I want to hear from you. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you would share it with your friends, your business besties. Go ahead and take a screenshot and put it in your stories and tag me at Tess_Wicks. If you have questions about what we talked about today, I am always open to DM you all. So just shoot me a DM on Instagram or get into the Facebook group and ask questions there, and we will communicate and have a little party. And I'm just excited to get to know you a little bit more. And that is it for today. So remember, put yourself first, set your personal income goal without thinking about your business. We'll worry about your business later. Download the Easy Profit Roadmap by going to wanderwealthy.com/roadmap. And then you'll get all the links after that. I promise you that. Okay, until next time, my loves, I hope you wander wealthy.